Full transparency, I've been in a creative rut lately, so what I like to do when that happens is take a step back and do projects that I know will bring me joy. For me, that is wood building. So today we're grabbing some inexpensive fence pickets and we're gonna head out to the garage and get building. But before we do, a huge thank you to MIDI Health for sponsoring today's video. All right, let's get into these 5 brand new fence picket projects. We are going to use cedar dog-eared fence pickets, 1x6s at 6 feet long, and you want to make sure that you are checking all of your wood before you buy it. If you're looking for tips, tricks, and essentially a glossary of the terms I'm using today, especially if you're new to wood building, be sure to check out this video. I will link it down below for you. It is all of the beginner tips I wish I knew before I got started. We're also going to grab some pieces from my scrap wood pile for braces and things like that because it's getting out of control. We're going to start by taking one of those fence pickets and we're going to cut 3 pieces at 15 inches long. You're also going to cut 2 pieces at 2 inches long, and you're going to do that before you get down to the end to save your fingers so you are doing things safely. Once you have those 5 pieces cut, you are going to head over and sand them down. We are going to sand and assemble as we go. This is following an Anna White plan for construction. My size is going to be different than hers, but the overall concept is similar, so a huge thank you. Her plans are amazing. Once everything's sanded, you are going to add some wood glue and some nails to create a U shape, which is going to be the base of this organization box. I love to have a clamp on hand because a lot of times I'm doing this by myself. My husband's working during the day. I don't have an extra set of hands. So these clamps are awesome. You can make sure that your edges are all lined up and you can put your nails in. I'm using 1 1/4 inch brad nails for this particular part of the project. Once your U is assembled, then we are going to measure that opening and we are going to cut our pieces. Mine were about 4 3/4 long. Sand those down, put them in the ends, and add with the same 1 1/4 inch brad nails. Make sure you are lined up and your nail gun is going to be going straight. That will help you eliminate nail pops. I've been doing this for years and I still get them sometimes, so it's not 100% foolproof, but do the best you can. Now you've got a super nice box. I'm going to take it up a notch by putting a little divider inside, which is the inspiration I got from the Anna White plan. Measure your opening. Mine was about 13 7/8, but measure so it fits your box, and then sand that down. I'm going to measure 5 inches from either end and add the 2-inch pieces here with some wood glue. This is going to create a little divider inside our box. I let the glue get a little tacky and then I flipped it over to create the best angle for nailing the pieces together. Now, if you have any edges that are not perfectly aligned, which fence pickets aren't perfect, that's why they're cheaper, so you can go through and go ahead and give that a sand. Now, if you are going to stain or paint your piece, this is the time to do it before you hook it together. It's going to be so much easier to get in those nooks and crannies. I left mine au naturel because I love the look of cedar, but what I wish I did before I nailed the pieces to the outside was to add these handles. So learn from my mistake, add your handles, and then assemble. And one of my best tricks for adding the handles is some blue painter's tape on the back. Mark where your holes are and then stick the tape right on your box. You can move it around, get it level, and then use it as a drill guide. Now you can use this for so many different things. We're going to use it as a mail sorter at our house. The front 2 pockets on either side are perfect for letters, so that could be for my husband and myself. The middle fits coupons and receipts perfectly, and the back is wide enough so that you can put full sheets of paper there. This is going to make such a difference in organizing our kitchen area. Now that we've got that physical organization out of the way, I also have been sorting through some health related stuff on my end because I have not been truly feeling myself. I decided that I wanted to dig a little bit further to see what was really going on to help me feel my best for my 35th year and beyond. And I am doing that using MIDI Health, a virtual care clinic that is transforming women's health nationwide. So here's what's going on. Last year in the fall, I went to my annual physical and I said, I am having headaches. I'm not sleeping very well. My anxiety is all over the board, more than normal, and did my labs and everything was normal. And like, honestly, I did not want anything to be wrong, truly, but also I wanted some answers and I wanted some relief from these symptoms. Turns out I just really needed somebody to look at what was going on with me, big picture. I got in with a MIDI clinician faster than I expected, and as part of their Age Well longevity service, for the first time, I really felt like my symptoms were being looked at all together and not in isolation. And that's what MIDI's Age Well service is built for. Instead of a once-a-year basic labs, they run quarterly checks on the things that actually shift as women age. hormones, thyroid, cholesterol, blood sugar, inflammation. Well, turns out my hormones, especially estrogen, were all out of whack. My clinician was explaining all the things that fluctuating estrogen can cause, and I could see the dots just all connecting. I'm like, this makes so much sense. Things that I didn't even realize. So now I feel so much more clear on what's going on in my body. I feel like I have an answer, and we have a plan moving forward to help me get relief. Your MIDI clinician will build a custom plan around your results, including targeted supplements, and then you will retest to actually see what's working and adjust as needed. What truly won me over is that MIDI's care is designed around the way a woman's body actually works, and I'm already feeling a difference, and that gives me more time back to do things like creating and building that I love. If any of this resonated with you, book your MIDI Age Well visit today. You can do that down in the description. I've got a link down there, and then you can also head over and learn all about MIDI. With the fall and winter holidays right around the corner, I know that I am going to be so excited to get decorating, and this next project is really going to help me with that. I'm going to start by cutting 3 pieces of the Picket to 22 inches each. Now, as we go through this project, know that you can adjust this to be whatever size you want, but I think the 22-inch works well. Once you've got those, then we are going to create our own rustic barn wood. So everything from a hammer to some screws to an old screwdriver with a hammer. You want to do the edges, you want to do the sides. You can go as crazy as you want, but I like to take little chunks out of the wood. I also like to use my wire brush to get it really nice and distressed. And you only have to do this to the side that you're going to use because the back we won't see. Then for staining, I'm going to do this new technique that I absolutely have been loving lately. You take some antique white by Varathane, and you don't even have to let the white dry. We're going to go right in with this English chestnut, and I am using a staining pad. I recently got it at Harbor Freight. I did a huge video on Harbor Freight products that you need to know as a crafter last week, so definitely check those out if you're interested. I'm just pressing in some additional dark stain into the divots that we made, and that makes all the difference. The layering of the stain gives us a really pretty cool toned brown, which I haven't been able to find in one, so this is great. Once all of your wood has dried, we are going to figure out where we're going to put this hook. I got this really pretty black matte metal hook from Menards, but you could use any hook. You could even honestly put a nail in this and just have it be like that, but I liked the hook. I centered where I wanted it, I added it to it, and then we are going to put the 3 pieces together. I just wanted to make sure that I had a flat surface to add the hook. Now I have some 1x2 scrap that was already stained. I grabbed this from my wood pile, but you could use shims, you could use paint stir sticks, whatever you got. And you are going to use some wood glue and nails to hook that all together. Then once my piece was all hooked together, it was ready to go. All you had to do was hang your wreath. This is an 18-inch wreath that fits on here. If you want a larger wreath for the holidays, you can just add one more board. You can make it taller. You could also turn this into a porch sign if you cut longer pickets. So the sky's the limit, but I am looking forward to using this with my fall, Halloween, and Christmas wreaths this season. This is a tremendously great beginner build, so if you haven't built before and you want to make something, this is a great project to start. This next one has been on my to make list for quite some time. It is this beautiful garden flag holder. I saw a girl on TikTok make this. Her name is Ashley. I will link her video down below. And she made hers with some different types of wood. So I wanted to make this for fence pickets. So come along and let me show you how I made it. And then to make this thing a little sturdier, I'm going to use some scrap. We've got this 2x4 that my husband bought for a project that he didn't use. It is pressure treated, but you don't need ground treated lumber if you don't want to, but this is just what's in my garage. I'm going to cut 2 pieces at 30 inches, and then I'm going to cut 1 at 14. So 2 at 30 inches, 1 at 14. So this next part is optional, but I wanted to add like a little like corner to this top part. So all I'm going to do is twist my saw. Depending on your model, it'll change, but I'm going to turn it. I'm going to set it to 30 degrees. And then I'm going to cut these corners off. You're going to go 3/4 of an inch from the outside and mark it. And then I'm going to line up my saw and go from the outside to that point at 30 degrees. So I have a light on my saw, so I'm going to use that to show where my blade's going to go. I'm just going to take a little bit off that corner.
Nothing crazy, just a little bit. And we're going to flip it over, go 3/4 of an inch from this side and do the same thing. Then we're going to get back to center. We're going to take a 1-inch dowel rod and I'm going to cut it to 18 inches. And this is where your flag's going to go.
Then our last cut is to cut 2 fence pickets at 18 inches wide.
So for the top of this, we're going to measure across, and it's 3.5 width. So I'm going to mark the middle of that, which is 1 3/4. And then I'm going to also go from the top down 2 inches, which actually I made a pretty good mark. So here is my X marks the spot. So we're going to put it on top of a scrap piece of wood that helps with this bit. And then we're going to put the pointy part right in the center of our X here. I'm going to use some pressure and we're going to go down through.
Repeat the same step on your second 2x4 and then everything is going to be ready for your finish. So again, 2 2x4s at 30 inches, 1 at 14 inches, and then 2 pickets at 18 inches, and your dowel rod is also 18 inches. We're going to make sure everything is nice and sanded, and also rock your sander around the top of those 2x4s to get a nice curved finished edge. Then we're going to do that 2-tone stain. You're going to see it throughout this video. That's how I finished everything, and I love it so much. The details will be down in the description for the exact colors and where you can find the stains, but I love how it looks. The cool tone, kind of a gray undertone to the brown, is perfect. Then you're going to take your 2 2x4s, add your dowel rod to the top, and then we're going to take our 14-inch piece and screw it into the bottom. I did 2 per side, so 4 total, and I'm also using my power driver for this. If you're going into 2x4s, it just gives you a little extra oomph versus your regular drill. Then we are going to add some wood glue at the bottom where our little piece is going to go, and as you notice, you can put your 14-inch 2x4 straight across the bottom, but I raise it about a 1/2 inch, so then that way I have just a little bit of space underneath. I'm going to use some 2-inch brad nails to secure these front and back face frame pieces for my box, just because the 2x4 is thick underneath. And then this thing is ready to go. You can slide your dowel rod, put your flag on, put it back in place, and you're ready to decorate. Now you could put real plants in this, or you could do what I did and use some of these faux ones. I didn't have any real ones to put in this day to stage it for you, so I just did this. But if you're going to do real plants, you could easily do that. You just want to make sure you drill some drainage holes at the bottom, and it would also help to put either some liner or like a plastic plant container. But I am so happy with this. A huge shout out to Ashley, the creator, who shared this on TikTok. I will share her video down below. And now there's a version with fence pickets.
Here is how I am drying out the fence pickets that I bought. We had some left over, so I didn't have to buy them for every project in the video. But these, it had like monsoon rained the night before. So what I did is I put some just scrap wood, like shims or whatever, in between, so that they could dry out. You got the airflow in there, because what I've learned over all my years of working with fence pickets is if you work with them when they're still wet on the inside, then you will have a lot more cracking and warping, and you don't want that after the fact. So I'm giving these a couple days. I bought them on a Friday. You can give them up to a week, but I think they'll be good by the time I cut on Monday.
I've been on the hunt for another corkboard for quite some time, and I couldn't find the one that I wanted, so I ended up grabbing this $5 one from Dollar Tree and decided to make it over myself.
So for our border, we are going to do some mitered corners. So I'm going to adjust my saw to 45 degrees. And then we're going to cut. So the first cut that I need to make is going to be from short point to short point, 21.5. Okay, so we're going to take, I think the easiest way to do this is to take the corner off first. So I'm going to line this up, use my light on my saw, and get to where I can cut a 45-degree cut on here. So just a little bit off the corner, and I'm going to cut this. So now, because we don't want them to be parallel cuts, we're going to flip our wood over. And we're going to measure from the short point, which is the inside, and we want 21 and a half. So we're going to slide this over and we're going to line up our light with that little notch that we made. And the other thing you want to make sure is that you are going to have perpendicular lines. So if your lines are parallel, you got to flip your wood. But here we're going to go parallel, so it's like parallel, parallel. And I'll show you after I cut. So we've got perpendicular, perpendicular, and then we're going to do one more exactly like this.
You're going to follow the exact same process and cut your smaller ones, and the measurements are just from what you want the inside of your frame to be. So I wanted the inside opening to be 21.5 by 15.5, and that's how you know what your short point to short point should be. Then we're going to go through and give this a sand, and as you can see as I'm sanding, it still has a beautiful cedar color and finish, but it's not going to be rough, and it's going to give you that nice finish. Then again, we're doing that same old stain technique. I love it so much. The color is just so good. And let those sit outside and dry fully, and then we're going to assemble. To do that, I grabbed some of these corner braces from Menards. You can get these at any hardware store. And the only thing with this is these screws were 7/8 inches long, and that's a little too deep to go through the wood because your fence picket is so thin. I ended up grabbing screws that we had, which were 5/8 of an inch long, self-tapping, and that worked much better. So I would get the braces if you can get them and not a set, and then you can get the thickness and depth of screw that you want. I'm going to go around and do all four corners. The mitered edges that we cut at 45 degrees will all fit together nicely, and you want to make sure you screw those in. I did one round first just so there was a little bit of mobility, and then I did a second round. So I did 2 packets for 8 corners. Now make sure that you apply those corners a little bit out from the center, because then we're going to add our corkboard. I added some wood glue and some nails just right through the wood frame from the Dollar Tree one. But the great thing about this is you could also add foam board, as we've done in the past, and have this be a beautiful frame for a photo. You could put a mirror behind this. You don't have to just use a corkboard. That's just what I wanted to use in my everyday life. This is perfect for everything from a family command center to a fun place to store mementos and photos. But what I really want to do with it, and why I made it, was for my office. I wanted to make a needlepoint canvas corkboard. I see all the creators that do needlepoint content have one, and I want to be able to have the canvases out that I want to stitch next, and then that way I know what to get for fibers and everything. But the sky's the limit with this. Anything you can frame, you can use this technique for. If you've been a craft buddy for a little bit, you know that I am in my vintage era. I love vintage crates, and I cannot bring myself to spend the insane amount of money that they go for. So I'm going to keep my eyes peeled, but in the meantime, I wanted to make my own. I actually grabbed this set of fence pickets from our yard. We had a box that it was getting moved and it actually broke. So it's one of my planter boxes that I built from before. And so my husband took some of the other wood, and then I ended up taking it apart. I worked through some math. Here is everything that I did. I took 2 pieces that we already had at 17.5. Then I cut it down to 16 inches for a third piece for the bottom of the box, and then 2 ends. So here are all of my measurements, but you can honestly make whatever box you want. I've made so many boxes over the years, so whatever size box you want to do. You could also distress this wood yourself like we did for the wreath holder. So you've got options if you don't have some in your yard, but this weathered so beautifully. Then I'm going to go through with wood glue and some nails. I'm using 1-inch nails to create the box. So you're going to do your 2 short sides. I like to have my front face frame of the box cover everything, just so then that way it has a nice finish. So I'm figuring out what I want to be on the outside, adding some wood glue, and then nailing that in, flipping it over, and repeating the process. A box is really easy to make, and once you have this skill, there are so many things you can make from the box, so sky's the limit. I found these really pretty pull knobs at Menards, so I decided to add them to either side, and then with cutting everything down from my wood, I had this extra piece that fits in the center perfectly. So come time to put pumpkins in these, or trees, or ornaments, or whatever for the holidays, I can divide it, and then I can take it out, which I really like. I just wanted it to be kind of a free roaming one. I can slide it up and down, so we're just going to keep this together. Then for the vintage crate element, I hit a few snags, but I ended up being able to transfer a Del Monte food logo onto some wax paper so that I could transfer it to the box. I followed an amazing tutorial by my friend Christina over at Christina Elizabeth. I will link her video down below because she goes thoroughly through all the steps. I did want to call out that if you have an ink smear, you can use a baby wipe to clean it up. And then we are going to take the wax paper that we printed our design backwards on the waxy side. We're going to put it down just like you would a heat transfer vinyl piece, essentially. You're going to put it down carefully. You don't want to move it once you put it down. It's like a screen print. And then I'm going to take one of my squeegees. You can also use a gift card, debit card, whatever. And I'm just going to push that ink onto the wood. The time between when I printed and when I started doing this was less than a minute. I literally printed it and walked downstairs because the lighting was better to show you. And I'm slowly working my way through, making sure I press down the edges. And the goal here is not to make it perfect, but we want to be able to make out what it's saying when we peel it back. I put some little washi tape down so that I could easily peel back without moving the whole thing, and that worked out really well. Now it's not fully like deep color, but that is what I was going for, and there's no way I could get this vintagey of a look, I think, with the stencil, with it like faded. I am so happy with this. Thank you, Christina, a million times for your tutorial. Like I said, I will link it because it is such a great tutorial if you want to do something like this. I loved it so much. It was added to my vintage hutch right away. Making this video for you brought me so much joy, and I feel like I am climbing out of that creative rut. So let me know down in the comments, what is your favorite project from this video? What do you plan to make? And also let me know, what's your best tips for getting out of a creative rut? Like I said, we've all been there and we can all lean on each other, because I know when I share stuff like this, you guys let me know that I'm not alone. So I want to make sure you can head to the comments and see how we can all get back to creating. Also, while you're down in the comments, be sure to check out more about today's sponsor, MIDI Health. I am so thankful for my age well visit that I did to figure out what was going on with my hormones. I am already starting to feel a difference, and if that resonates with you, be sure to check them out. You can do that via the link in the description. Head over there, learn more about MIDI, and see if that's something that can work for you. And I will catch you in the next one. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new so you don't miss any future Whiskey and Whit videos. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy crafting. Bye!